Hello friends, welcome back. You're watching a full stack development video series. This is episode 3. We are building online course enrollment application using Angular, .NET and a lot of Azure services along with the DevOps. So in this video, I will be walking you through how to set up the .NET Core Web API in your local using Visual Studio and other setups, and we will also go through some fundamental concepts that is required for this video. So if you're new to this and if you have not subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to my channel, and if you haven't watched the previous videos, I will give you in the description and go ahead and watch that. So without delay, come let's get started. So friends, before we dive in, this is the GitHub link where you will find every single project that I'm demonstrating. So feel free to go through and browse whichever project you like. For this specific video, I will post the exact link of the repository in the video description itself. If you would like to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter and GitHub, these are the links that you can click and follow me. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you, so don't forget to follow me. Now let's dive into the video. So what is the goal of this video? Is to set up the required software for the web API to be built. So we will be looking at that, like we'll be seeing a Visual Studio 2022 and then .NET Core 8 SDK installation, followed by we will be creating a project, and then we'll understand how the .NET application works, .NET Core application works, services, middlewares and etc. And then we will also create a layer to structure to address the separation of concerns like industrial standard code. And then followed by we will be installing the packages to the project that is required for this project, and then we will be creating the entity models based on the previous video where we build a database for our application, right? So based on that, we will be building the entity models, and then finally we'll be configuring the DbContext and see how EF core is able to talk to the database. And that's what all of these things will be covered in this video. So come, let's dive in now. Alright, so in order to install the softwares, go and search for Visual Studio 2022 community versions. That's the free version and that's the latest one. If you go here, if you click on download, you will be able to download it for your OS. Okay, if you're using Mac OS, please download according to that. But this is the setup that you need to do. After that, you need to search something called .NET Core 8 SDK. Meaning we are going to deal with .NET Core 8, so you need to install that SDK separately. Right now 9 is in preview. Look at this. 8 is in the solid long time support. It's supported until 2026. So we will start with the latest one, 8. Go here and click on 64-bit version, right? So which is it will download and install this SDK. Now that's it from the API perspective. So only these two. So open up the Visual Studio 2022 and click on new project. Once it comes, it will ask you to select a template. So we're going to search with web API. Basically .NET Core web API, .NET Core itself can work on the Linux machine, not just Windows machine. Okay, so if you select web API as a filter, and the first one that comes will be the one that we will choose. Select next, choose a location where your project needs to be there. I'm going to put it under a particular location where I used to do it. So I'm going to click on next after giving the name, and then you choose 8 as the version and do a check mark on all of these things. Basically we're not going to build any minimal API because it's a real controller, so it has to be like that. So just choose all of these, whatever is shown on the screen. So like for the controllers, we want anything to be on a separate classes. We need the Swagger OpenAI support. That's what it says, right? So once you're done with this, right, this is the project, it will come. And basically what we are going to do is, if you come here wherever it was created, I'm just going to remove a redundant folder. So basically there are 2 folders inside, so the same name folder inside a folder, right? So you really don't need to do it, but I'm going to do it. So I'm going to close this and go inside this. I'm going to just move this one level above so that there is no same duplicate folder. Okay, really, like I said, you don't need to do it, but I just don't like it, so I'm doing it anyway. Now this is the project, it is opened. Now what you are going to do is, we are going to go through all of these things, like at a high level, what is this .NET Core. So if you double click on the project, whatever is seen here, this is a place where it talks about what framework the project is, what kind of other settings are here, and there is the packages, right? NuGet packages that we talk about. Those packages are being listed here. By default, Swagger the Swagger one, which is the open API documentation thing, that's by default installed as per the template. And this is the default controller that you can see. We will talk about this controller in a moment. Basically it has some methods and all, and then the next one that you need to understand is the settings. App settings.json is common irrespective of any environment, and if you see something like app settings.development.json, that's for the development. And coming back to the program, there are two concepts under the main program class. That's one thing called service configuration, and the other one is called middleware. If you have worked on .NET Core 3.0 and all, it used to have two different methods separately, but these days it's not really meant to be like that. So as long as the first one, right? The first one is a service where you configure the dependency injection. Dependency injection is nothing but interface based implementation, and based on which interface implementation you're asking, the constructor will give us the dependency injection, right? An instance of that class. That's called, so those kind of service configuration, anything that is all service configuration will come here, right, within this region. And after that, the moment you see builder.build, which is coming as an app variable, that's called middlewares. Okay, I will talk about more about the middlewares and all, middleware concepts and all, but just for a high level, right? And then when you launch this application, if you go to the properties and launch setting, you see there is something called ASP.NET Core_environment. That's the variable name that is being used by the .NET Core app, and if it is mentioned as development, it will look for app settings.development.json. Okay, so that is how it works. And you see this, there are two ways of running this application. One is the IS Express, which is inbuilt by the Visual Studio. The other one is the basic HTTPS one, right? That's built and that's running only because of the .NET Core application. It's called Kestrel servers. Now, the moment you build, you see the 7005 that's coming from here. So because we choose to have this HTTPS and then we ran it, that's where it's coming. And the moment you click try it and then say it's returning data, because it's returning some dummy data, right? Really just to make sure the application is working here, right? This is a place where it is returning the data, and we're going to clean up all of these things, but let's go one by one. If you see this one, right, this is the service for the Swagger endpoint. So builder.service.add endpoints API Explorer means basically those two are the Swagger endpoint. Basically what it does is it reads through every single controller and its methods, and it knows what is their signature. Signature means return type and the parameter type, and then it knows whether it's a get method or what kind of method it is. Similarly, middleware is like a pipeline where it flows through one way and comes back in the same way. If you look at this, we are telling, hey, give us a nice UI for the Swagger where you can explore the APIs. At the same time, we have a if condition where show the Swagger endpoints only when it is a development environment, not after deploying to stage, production, or any other environment. That's what it means. Alright, the next thing is, let's create this project very industrial standard. So I'm going to right click and add a new project. This time I'm going to choose as libraries. Okay, there's only one web project. The next three projects will be libraries. The moment you choose library, choose as C# and then give a name. I'm going to give three different things, right? So one is .data, .core, and .services. Those are the three layers that we are going to build. The first layer is the data layer, and then choose 8 as the supported version, and then click create. The project is created. It's a plain empty library project. Okay, it doesn't have anything. Now we have to create two more projects. So basically we have 4 layers: API talking to service talking to the database, which is the data layer. In between there's another layer called the core layer, where we put all the models and entity models, like all of those POCO classes will be there. So what you're seeing on my screen is creating 2 more projects. One is for the services, one is for the core. Again, I'll repeat, core is meant only for keeping the database entities, which you will see now. Service is the place where you write the business logics. Okay, so there are 4 layers, and if you go to the place where the project was created, you can see those 4 projects coming right away here. And in the previous video we talked about database scripts, so I'm going to move that under the data project. So when you go to GitHub repository, you will see the database scripts under the data project. All right, so there are 4 projects. Now what we are going to do is, if you click this, I'm just verifying whether it is in the build mode. Okay, so everything looks good. We don't need to build the script and we don't need to copy this to the output directory, so everything looks good. Great. I'm just cross verifying it, right? So this is the script. If you guys have not seen the previous video, this is the database script, and we already executed this and we have a local database. If you're not, feel free to take this and execute in your local so that you will get the database. Now next thing is adding the NuGet packages. So right click on the project and go to the NuGet package and go and say browse. We are going to install Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. As of this recording, for the latest 8, it is 8.0.8 is the latest one. So I installed the latest one here. Alright, now this is one way of installing, right? Now if I know what packages I want, which I already know, I can come here to the project, like literally double click on the project, come to the place where there's an item group and there's a package reference. Here, if I put whatever packages I wanted to install, it is equivalent of putting it into the NuGet package. Okay, because at the end of the day, when you finish, when you give this code to someone, right, nobody will have packages. Nobody's going to do the NuGet packages the way we did. When they build the project will pick up the package details from this place. That's why I'm showing you why you need to go via NuGet package, or how can you go like this directly. Both are same. We just go and do a right click and do a NuGet package only when we try to find out what version is latest and all of those things, right? If you already know, like this, I can copy paste and it will install my required NuGet packages as of this recording, right? As we build, we will add more NuGet packages. So for now, all what we have is Entity Framework.SQL Server, design, and Entity Framework itself. Okay, and then of course the existing swashbuckle.asp.core. So if you now build, you can see under dependency, under packages, whatever you have it on the project will be showing up here. Whenever you try to use any of the methods or any functionality within this package, it is being taken from here. Okay, now we are going to do the same work for the rest of the project, for the core and for the data and for the service. For the core, we are going to use Entity Framework stuff here. That's why we need these packages here. I'm going to install all of those things, and other than that, there's something called Microsoft.extension.hosting.abstraction and Azure.identity. So if you have following this video, don't worry, go to that GitHub and take this package and just copy paste the way I did, so that you can follow along with me. Similarly, like I'm going to do that in the service layer also. So data we have to do, service for now we don't need, and we have added the core also. Now next is the project dependency. API project will depend on these things. Core project doesn't depend on anything. Data project, go right click, say add project dependency. Data will depend on service. Okay, and then the service will be depending on the core and data. The core and data is what the service will depend. Actually, the data will not depend on the service. Now if you build it, it will build. Owner project has some error. Okay, so I'm going to correct it. Okay, so when you build it, it builds everything, and you see this, all the 4 projects were built. So 4 succeeded, 0 failed. Great, so build is good. All of this looks good. Now all what you have to do is I copy pasted a readme file here under the data project. Here what you're going to do is you're going to install a software or a tool called Entity Framework Tool .NET EF. So open up your terminal or command prompt like this. Like you can open any of these things, terminal or command prompt. Terminal means basically a PowerShell script. So open up here and you copy the script to see whether it is installed in your machine or not. Okay, and if you do this, it is going to pull up the latest one. So I have 8.0.7 latest one installed. Good. After that, if you have not installed anything, there are tools and details here in this readme file. You can install it. If you want to uninstall and reinstall it, install it. Or if you already installed, you just need to upgrade. There's a script to upgrade. You can do the update also. Okay, so end of this, all what you want is, if you do .NET EF, you should see something like this. Okay, great. So we have installed the .NET EF tool. Next is we need to scaffold all the database entities into the project. Now in .NET EF, there are various things that you can do. Okay, so let's do the first thing, right? Let's right click on this core project. Okay, I'm going to go to the physical location where the core project is present, because here is the place where I need to extract my entities. So if you go here and do a CMD, actually it will open up in the command prompt directly. If you don't know the shortcuts, this is how it is. And then here, if you say .NET EF, it will list down all the options. See, we have database, DbContext, migrations. We are now going to deal with the DbContext. Database is a separate one, migration is a separate one. All right, so now, so let's try this out, right? So if you say .NET EF and then say DbContext, it will list down the other informations, the commands inside that. So it has info, list, optimize, scaffold, script, right? Scaffold means it will go connect to the database, and scaffold, like it will create all the models based on the tables. So for that, this is the query. Okay, query means like this is how you need to do it, and it is there in the readme file. Basically, it has your server name, I mean .NET EF DbContext scaffold followed by the server name, and then Microsoft.EntityFramework.SQL Server -o entities -d. Basically, it will create an entities as a folder, and it will do all of those as a separate classes. Okay, so once you execute that, if the connection string is correct, it will build, and you can watch here. See, right side, I'm keep hovering my mouse. See, there's some folder came, and all of these 10 tables that we have it in our database also came. One of this is called online course DbContext. DbContext also it will create. So let's understand what is this. DbContext is something deals with the database, and that's from the entity framework core. So any class that inherits a DbContext can be treated as a context, like you can use that as a DbContext. Okay, so if you see here, online course DbContext is just a plain class that inherits DbContext, which means it has to override its public property, like the public constructor. You can see line number 14 to 17. That's the place where you pass. So here, if you see what are we doing this, we are getting a constructor with that an option and then passing it to the base class. Base class is nothing but the DbContext. Why do we want this? Basically, in order to connect to database, it needs the connection string. The way we configure here is you can send the connection string from the program.cs, so that you don't need to hardcode anything here. That's why line number 15 is super important. Line number 15, 16, just understand that we are passing the connection string options, like the database option, from the program.cs, and then it will go and connect everything there. The next thing is dbset. Every single table, if you want that as a model and talk to the database, it should be dbset and of that table name. If you see, there are 10 tables. That's why you see dbset 10 times. All one thing is called one table. So we have 10 tables, we have 10 dbsets of this. So first one is the course category, enrollment, all of those things, right? So we have 10 tables. Now we understood what is DbContext, what are those dbsets. Because we did through the scaffolding stuff, it hard-coded the connection string, we will remove it. Last but not least, the one which is showing as on model creating. Basically what it has is any definition that is there, we define in the database for the tables, like primary key, foreign key, default constraint, that constraint, this constraint, relationship between the tables, all of those things are actually written here. So entity framework code knows by reading the database how to write these things. So it actually generated these things for us. In case people who want to follow the model first approach or code first approach, they have to write like this, which will be converted into the database table schema. Okay, it's same. It's vice versa, right? From there to here or here to there. But the configuration has to be matched and it has to be precise. Any mistake will screw up the database. So we are following database first approach because 99.9% of the company will have existing database and you'll be working on those things. It's not like you'll be doing something brand new unless you do it for yourself, for your project, for your own business, right? That's my experience. It's very rare. Even if they rebuild a new application, the database is going to be the same. So it is very unlikely that you will have you'll be starting anything new as a database. I haven't seen my last 15-16 years of experience. Anyway, now that's why we are following database first approach. Let me know in the comment section if you have other way around, like if you always feel a model first approach is important, we will also accommodate that in the video. Great. Now we have all of these things ready. Great. Now what we did is actually we moved that piece of like online course DbContext class from the core to the data project, because this is supposed to be in the data project. Okay, because we scaffolded it, created that, but we moved it, we changed the namespace, everything looks good. Now we will clean up whatever class is not required. Now let's minimize this, everything looks good. Next is the connection string setup. If you go and click on development.json, see basically I said right, development, if you run it will read the connection string from development. So I'm going to copy paste connection string and DbContext. Do not change the name, connection strings has to be connection string, and then DbContext is something that you can change it. So here is the place I give. If I go and copy paste a different one in the production or keep it empty, which you will see when we go to the Azure deployment, okay, so it will take the connection string according to the environment. Now go to the program.cs and first we will create a variable called configuration and we will assign builder.configuration. This is nothing but I configuration. If you are familiar with .NET Core lower version, I configuration is the one is coming from the builder.configuration. Now we're going to set up, or I would say we're going to wire up the services for the database connection. So we will say builder.services.add DbContext pool. There's two things, add DbContext and DbContext pool. DbContext pool will reutilize the opened connection. That's why it's better to use DbContext pool. And then you pass the DbContext name, which is OnlineCourse.DB, and then you pass the option. In the option, you will be having a place where you can define whether the SQL or MS SQL or Cosmos DB or whatever it is. In our case, it is SQL, so we will say option dot use SQL server followed by pass the connection string. How do you get the connection string? From the configuration, if you say dot get connection string and pass whatever that name, in our case it is DbContext. If you have given some other name, you pass that name here. Okay, line number 22, DbContext has been passed because the property name in the app settings.development.json has DbContext. That's why. Now after this, I'm going to also assign an option called enable retry mechanism. Basically there will be some place where it, due to the network connection or something, database doesn't open up immediately, but when you reconnect again it will open up. Or I would say a valid situation is if you use a SQL server where you can pause the database, at the time this will be very useful, because very first time when you hit it, it will wake up, and then after sometimes only it will come online. So for that, this will be very useful. I will show you that when we go to the Azure SQL database. Now we have done that, right? Last thing, we're going to test this DbContext connection string is all perfect and it is talking to database. What do we do that for that? So come to this controller, I'm going to inject an instance of the DbContext just to give you an example to make sure this is working. The way we are writing is not right, and we will be deleting all of these codes, okay, especially this controller. So in order to inject, go to the constructor, say online DbContext, and then click on control period. It will give you option, choose the field or the public constructor. It will create like this, and then here, don't worry about these things. I'm just giving an live example, or I'm showing you how to access the DbContext to see, make sure everything is perfect, your application is working end to end. Okay, so DbContext dot, it will give you all the tables here. I'm just going to randomly choose one table, get the data and return the data. If the DB connection is correct, if it is able to talk to the database, you will see the data coming up. So run it, try it out. First time it's going to take few seconds. Boom, we got the answer, which means it is able to talk to the database and it is able to get the data. If you have achieved this as you follow along with me, which means your project is up and running, ready, all the configuration is perfect. If not, go take a look at my code. It will be there in a separate branch so that we know which episode is for which code. You can start wherever you wanted to start. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and if you have not subscribed, do subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends, leave me a thumbs up, and then if you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section. I'll see you in the next video of this episode. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!